You know that voice in your head, the one that's constantly telling you you're not good enough, that you messed up, that you should be better? Well, a lot of us have that harsh inner critic. And in this explainer, we're going to dive into how to transform that very voice from a source of anxiety into, believe it or not, your greatest ally. And we're going to do it all through the power of self-compassion.
So, let me just start by asking you a question, something to frame our thinking here. Would you ever speak to a friend the way you sometimes speak to yourself? If the answer is a pretty quick no way, then you are in exactly the right place. Let's explore why that is.
So yeah, let's talk about that voice in your head. There's this really common myth that being tough on ourselves is the key to motivation, right? That it's the secret to success. But what if that whole idea is not just wrong, but is actually counterproductive?
Okay, so let's break this down. Here's the myth versus the reality. We've been taught to believe that this harsh self-talk is a necessary tool, kind of like a personal drill sergeant that keeps us on track. But the research, it paints a completely different picture. Instead of pushing us forward, that critical voice actually activates our brain's threat response. It floods our system with cortisol and anxiety, which just undermines our performance. It makes it almost impossible to learn from our mistakes because, honestly, we're too busy being afraid of them.
But here's the good news. We are not stuck with this inner critic. We can absolutely change this pattern, and it all begins with two key steps you see here: awareness and reframing. It really just starts by noticing the voice, without judging it, and then actively working to change the story it's telling.
And this right here, this is what that reframing looks like in practice. It's such a subtle but incredibly powerful shift. You're moving from a place of harsh judgment, I failed again, to a place of curiosity and growth. Just asking what can I learn from this opens the door to possibilities instead of slamming it shut with shame.
Okay, so if that harsh criticism isn't the answer, then what is? Well, this brings us to a much kinder and, frankly, a far more effective way forward: the actual practice of self-compassion.
So what exactly is self-compassion? At its heart, the idea is refreshingly simple. The pioneering researcher in this field, Dr. Kristin Neff, defines it as treating yourself with the very same understanding and support you'd automatically offer to a good friend. It's really about making a conscious decision to shift from being an inner enemy to becoming an inner ally.
Now, Dr. Neff's research breaks this down into three essential parts that all work together. First up is self-kindness. This means actively being warm toward ourselves when we're struggling, instead of cold and critical. Then there's common humanity. This is a crucial and, honestly, a really comforting reminder that making mistakes and struggling is a universal human experience. It doesn't isolate you, it actually connects you to everyone else. And finally, mindfulness. This lets us observe our difficult feelings with some balance, so we're not ignoring them, but we're not letting them completely take over either. Together, these three pillars create this incredibly powerful foundation for real resilience.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually turn it into action in our real, busy lives? Let's walk through 3 practical, concrete exercises you can literally start using today.
The first practice is a simple but really powerful tool you can use anytime, especially in stressful moments. You just pause. Maybe place a hand over your heart. And that's not just symbolic, by the way. The physical act of soothing touch can actually help regulate your nervous system and calm your body's threat response. And then you simply offer yourself a few words of kindness, just acknowledging the difficulty without any judgment.
All right, for a deeper practice, you could try writing a letter to yourself. The idea is to pick something you feel insecure or critical about and then write about it, but from the perspective of an infinitely compassionate friend. This exercise is so powerful because it helps you externalize that kind voice. It reminds you that struggles are universal and allows you to explore the whole situation with genuine kindness. Reading it back to yourself later, yeah, that can be a profound way to start rewiring that inner critic.
A self-compassion journal is another powerful habit. At the end of the day, you can use a simple 3-column structure just like this one. So first, you note a difficulty you faced. Next, and this part is key, you reflect on how this struggle connects you to that shared human experience, remembering you are not alone in this. And finally, you just list a few kind, supportive things you did for yourself. This practice actively trains your brain to look for support instead of criticism when you're facing life's challenges.
So why go through all this trouble? What's the real payoff here? Well, it turns out the power of self-kindness goes far beyond just feeling a little bit better. It's about building tangible, measurable psychological strength. The research on this is just incredible. It reveals this huge range of benefits, from lower anxiety all the way to greater life satisfaction. But you know what's maybe the most surprising finding?
the direct link to motivation. Here's the paradox. Contrary to the myth that self-compassion makes you lazy, it actually increases our drive to learn and improve. And that last point is so important. It's not about ignoring your mistakes. It's about creating the psychological safety that allows you to face them constructively without that debilitating fear of failure.
And this quote from Dr. Neff just nails it, doesn't it? If you really want to motivate yourself, love is more powerful than fear. We're so used to operating on this model of fear-based motivation, driven by that inner critic. But the science and the practice of self-compassion show us that a foundation of kindness is a far more powerful and way more sustainable way to grow.
So I want to leave you with this one question to take with you. It doesn't have to be some massive change overnight. Just what is one small, compassionate thing you can do for yourself today? It can be as simple as reframing a single critical thought, or maybe taking that mindful break we talked about. That small step, that is where the transformation begins. That's all for this explainer. Thanks so much for joining us.